Welcome back to today's episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Gabrielson from Loveland PD in Ohio, 33 years total in law enforcement. Welcome to the show, Chief Gabrielson.
Thank you so much. Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
for being here. No, thank
Oh,
you
for
for being
sure.
here. We really appreciate it. And I want to start with a little bit of background on you. 33 years is a long time to be in this career. So
It is.
give us some insight.
Uh, so 33 years. I've come up through the ranks, started as a patrol officer, did the natural progression, went into criminal investigations for a number of years. Most of that time was spent undercover, in narcotics and organized crime. When that finally got to me, and it did, there was a time where I was done and needed to get out. I started to promoted in my original agency, 29 years up to assistant chief. Retired after 29 years. And I like to tell everybody that my wife let me retire for a grand total of 48 hours because the follow up retired on a Friday, and Monday I started here as the chief. I was lucky enough to be selected here in Southwest Ohio to be the chief of Loveland, which is a fantastic community. And I have been here coming up on 4 years.
Wow. 48 hours, that's a really long retirement.
Yes, yeah, it was great. It's amazing what you can get done in 48 hours if you really put your mind to it.
Did you have any mentors throughout your career?
Overall, yeah, I mean, first of all, just my parents, came from a working class family. My dad, he was really the one that instilled the work ethic in me, and then the problem solving. That was the big thing from him. So he was by far my biggest mentor through everything. So just seeing the problem and finding a way to get around it or through it. That's the biggest thing I can say from him. And then over the years, different, officers directly. I mean, I think everybody, one of the most important things I think that everybody has to do, and leaders especially need to find, is that one person that can come to them and say, hey, that's not, you shouldn't be doing that, or what are you doing, or you need to rethink that, or, take a breath. That finding that person is really important.
Yeah, and I've talked about this before. I think it's important to have that one person, and it's important that that person is in your circle or in your corner. They want you to win. I think that's a really important
Yes,
thing to note because if you have someone coming up to you and saying you're messing up or you're not doing something the way that maybe you should be and they don't want you to win, it doesn't really land in the way that it should. So having someone like my fiance is that person for me. He'll call me out all day long and I appreciate it because I know that he's on my team. I know he
absolutely.
wants me to win. So I agree with you. I think that that's so important. Have you had anyone who I wouldn't say called you out, but was there any lesson that you learned that someone kind of helped you to see maybe a different way than you originally had for yourself?
Um, yeah, over the years, I can look back. I had somebody, that again, we're problem solvers. That's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what law enforcement, we are there. That's our entire existence is to, we get called. Obviously, we're there to help, to serve, and protect, but it's mainly to solve problems. So, sometimes just listening is the best thing that you can do to solve that problem. And that's huge in personal relationships. This profession is very, very difficult on personal relationships because if you have a spouse or significant other that comes to you, we always want to instantly fix that problem for them. And that's not always the best solution. It's much better, as you said, sometimes sitting back and listening and just, letting them get it out and not having a solution for everything. But that's not natural for me for sure. I want to fix it, right? Let's work on it, let's fix it. But that's not what needs to be done. So that was a huge lesson in the personal side, but you can also apply that to work.
Yeah.
Give people a chance to get to that solution themselves.
I also think it helps us to open up our minds to learning and understanding different perspectives because I'm like you. I'm going to jump in right away and be like, what do we have to do? But it's still just what I think, and I think the more that we can kind of take that back seat and we have an open mind to listening and hearing different perspectives, then we start to understand that there's more than one way to do things sometimes.
Absolutely. I did a mentor of mine it was a previous captain that I had. He promoted up ahead of me. So I worked with him as a sergeant, as a lieutenant, and then he was assistant chief for a period of time. one of his famous sayings was always, "What problems does your solution create?" And I have taken that to heart because exactly what you just said, your solution might be one way, but it's not the best way. And then you need to realize, you know, yeah, this is a solution for me, but is it a solution for everybody?
Wow. What problems does your solution create? Nice. I wrote that down. I love it. What is one thing that people would be maybe surprised to know about you? Something that not a lot of people know about you?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I don't know. I've got, three kids, two girls and a boy, and then exactly the same thing. I have three grandchildren, two girls and a boy, and I am definitely being a grandfather is just that's honestly, my kids were fantastic. I'm not gonna take anything away from that, but being put on this earth to be a grandfather, be Papa as they call me, that's one of the reasons I'm here. I'm a softball grandfather. I'm a softball Papa. I get her around to everything and just watching her and warming her up and throwing with her and hitting with her and being on the field for hours on end. That's probably the biggest thing that people don't realize that that's where a lot of my time is, and I love every single minute.
Thank you. I actually had a conversation recently about this because know another chief that is about to be a grandpa, and I said the same thing. I'm like, everyone I've talked to who's a grandfather or a grandma says that it's way better than, than being a parent, and so it's something to look forward to.
Absolutely.
How have you, throughout your 33 years, how have you been able to manage work life and home life? And how have you been able to, you know, maybe turn work down, maybe not always off, but turn it down so you can be present and have a successful and healthy home life outside of the job?
Yeah, I can definitely say that that always hasn't been a strength of mine. I worked a lot, I sacrificed a lot. It definitely impacted a lot of relationships that I had. It definitely impacted the family. But again, as you mature, you start to realize what things are important. And it is, work is honestly temporary compared to, your life. We hope that we're retired for much longer than we actually worked. So realistically, it's here, work is here, but we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and everybody else to get to that next phase of life, which is retirement. And that's a big goal of mine. And not only for me, but for my officers here. I want to make sure that, yeah, they have a fantastic career, but they make it to retirement and they're in retirement for a long time so they can see their grandkids grow up or their, great grandchildren grow up. But for me specifically, going back, that work-life balance, um, yeah, it just, I don't know. It's realizing that there are so many more things in life. Work is extremely important. It gives you the ability to go out and make an impact on your community. But having that work-life balance so that you can separate yourself, so that you can be there for, your loved ones when they need you and be a big part of their life, creating those memories. It's absolutely critical to have that balance for yourself because you're going to be a much better person, a much better officer, a much better leader if you have that balance. If you are solely focused in on work, then something's going to give, something's going to suffer. Generally, that's going to be the people that you love, and then your work's going to suffer because of it. So, to be the best version of yourself, you have to maintain that balance.
And I appreciate you starting off by saying, I didn't always get it right. I think we can all relate to that. Anyone who's listening can relate to that. And I love that you said, like, sometimes it's perspective as you mature and get older and maybe make those mistakes that you start to be able to put things into perspective and understand what's important in your life. And I don't think that, and again, I also didn't do this right. So I can relate to what you said, and I made a lot of mistakes. And I used to think it was all or nothing, and now my perspective is so different. It's not an either or. It's not a successful career or a successful family. You can have them both. You can go to work and you can work really hard and you can love what you do and you can be great at it and you can also be present with your family and you can be a great role model, father, husband, wife, whatever that looks like within your family unit. It's not an either or. And when I was younger, I convinced myself that it was one or the other. And that was one of my biggest mistakes.
Yeah, very, very, very true. We, again, as a chief, I surround myself with, exceptional people, exceptional leaders, and I need to trust that if I need to, miss a meeting or to be someplace for my family, that I have the utmost confidence in them, but I got to let go and let them do that and do their thing. So that's what they're here for a reason, to support me, to support each other, to support the community. And so, again, as you mature, in my younger days, yeah, I was the only one that could do it. I was the only one. I had to be there.
Yeah.
But now I've learned to let go because I have to trust. And that's the same way in my personal life. I have to trust that, my wife is she handles a lot of things and she's gonna handle it if I can't be there, because of a work commitment or because of another commitment, that it's gonna get done. Or my kids, my son is gonna handle it for me. So yeah, you surround yourself with people that you trust and that you love, and you got to give them the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. It's so funny you said that because Jess and I were literally just talking about this before we hopped on with you about how my personality was always that, like, I'll just do it. I'll do everything. I got it. I can do it the best. I can do it the quickest or whatever. Delegation is so hard.
Yes,
But to your point, and I was telling Jess this before, I'm like, I want everyone around me to be better than me. I want that. And I think that we have to provide the resources and the training and the opportunities for people to succeed. And when you have people, to your point, that are great, then delegation becomes so much easier. But I think a lot of people struggle with that, myself included, because we have those personality types where we're like, I'll just do it.
absolutely.
I was the kid in grade school that in a group project, I just did it all by myself.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
allowed everyone to get an A because, I knew that I could do it. So delegation is hard, but I think it also comes down to how are we training and preparing the people around us, and how are we choosing the people around us to be quality people. And your circle matters a lot. I wanted to circle back to something that you said earlier, though, and that was setting your department up for success so that they can have a long career, but then a long and successful retirement. We talked a little bit before we hit record, and I had someone recently tell me that it was called retirement training or training
Right.
for retirement.
Right.
What are some of those things that you guys are doing to be proactive in making sure that your team has those resources and the things that they need to be successful so they can have a long and successful retirement?
Well, so again, throughout my career, the physical side, law enforcement has been, very good about pushing officers to, stay physically ready, prepare physically, which that's a huge part of it. But we missed the boat for years, and we're getting better on the mental side, on the mental health side of it. So the impact of the shift work that they do, the stress that we've seen, the dumps of adrenaline and cortisol, and the physiological effects on us that we see, and it's the prolonged exposure to all of that stress and trauma. So for us, promoting physical fitness, we have access to a phenomenal fitness facility that was obtained by our firefighters, specifically by the fire department that represents us and another agency next to us, a township next to us. They were able to secure a grant, and they invited us in to use their facility. So our officers now have the ability to work out on shift, call pending. They can go for an hour, up to an hour a day. We work 12-hour shifts, so they can go up to an hour a day and work out. And it is absolutely a top-notch fitness facility that the firefighters put together. We have access to an athletic trainer. He's a tactical athletic trainer that specializes in first responders. We have access to him specifically through our department. We contract with him where we have access twice a month. Um, but we started as a pilot program, and just from what we did in a year, the city actually adopted it. So now all of our support staff at the city, everybody at City Hall, and our public works now have access to them. So that
Nice.
now gives us weekly access to our athletic trainer. And then our fire department also adopted it. That's one thing that we were able to share with them is the benefits of having an athletic trainer that you could see for educational purposes, for if you tweak something, you can actually go see them before it turns into a lifelong injury. You get it addressed now. So we actually, multiple times a week, we have access to an athletic trainer, which is, I mean, it's such a benefit and it has helped us out. It has saved us money. We're getting people back. We're not seeing as many injuries. We're getting them back from injury much faster. It's just absolutely phenomenal for us. Um, I started when I got here, our chaplain program had kind of faltered. So I actually got our chaplain program back up and running. That just is another tool that gives our officers, not only when they're out on the street and they're dealing with trauma, they can bring someone in that is faith-based, but they're also here for them. If that's something an officer chooses and that's important to them, that they have someone faith-based that they can go meet with, talk with, ride with. Um, and that's been a great plus to the agency as well. So that's the things that we started right away when I got back in over the last 3 to 4 years we've been developing. So it's a little bit, we add a little bit, we change things a little bit, but we make sure that we keep moving forward as we do this. One last thing I wanted to add was our psychologist. We have a psychologist that is available to us if something happens, that, you know, it's available. We did mandatory, the checkup from the neck up, where we made everybody go. I can't force them to participate, but I can force them to be in the room with a professional. So they go, if they choose to participate, that's fantastic. If they didn't, then, if they just wanted to sit there for their time, then that was their choice. But at least it was an option that they had. And I got that through a grant to start that program, and I actually had enough money to expand that to primary support person in their house. So whether it was a wife or if it was a roommate, or they could go in for a pair as a couple, or they could go in individually to meet with the psychologist as well. Because
Mm.
everything that we deal with, we take home. As much as we try not to, we do take it home.
I have never heard anyone say we're going to provide resources to the primary support system within the household. We've talked a lot about home wellness. We've talked a lot about providing resources for spouses, but I think that's a really interesting perspective for you to say, hey, it might not be a spouse. It might
Yes.
be a roommate. It might be a brother, a sister, a mother, a father, whoever that primary support system is within the household. We want to make sure that they're supported. So thank you for that because I've done a lot of interviews. I've talked to a lot of chiefs and I have never heard anyone say, hey, it doesn't have to be a spouse. It can be whoever is that primary person for the employee.
I would love to take credit for it. It was actually our doctor, our psychologist, Dr. Berkeley. She specializes in first responders,
Mhm.
and she was actually the one that said exactly what she said. Hey, it's not. It doesn't have to be a spouse. You know, because again, we go home. Some people are going home to an empty home, but they still have that person that they talk to. They still have that person that they call. They still have that person they go hang out with, and they
Yeah.
unload some of this baggage on that person. It's important for that person to understand, what's going on, what's happening, be able to look for some of the warning signs that we hit. Are they eating? Are they sleeping? Are they not? Are they changing? So it's really important
I think
to make
it's
sure we provide those resources.
I think it's super smart. And I think it goes back to how can we continue to ask ourselves the question, are we doing the absolute best that we can? Is there a better way of doing things? Is there another way of looking at things? How can we continue moving things forward in the most productive way? And what you just said, and I know you said that it wasn't your idea, but what you just said, I think is a reminder of that. I'm always like spouses, 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 without asking, is there a different or a better way? What if there isn't a spouse? How can we support the people who are supporting them regardless of their title or their role? So, thank you for that reminder. And I think it's a reminder to anyone who's listening, can we continue to assess the conversations that we're having, the resources that we're providing, the conversations that we're having, and make sure that they're the most effective that they possibly can be.
For sure.
The biggest burning question that I'm getting from everybody is, how do you get buy-in? How do you build these programs and these resources into your budget? Do you have any advice for anyone who's listening on, keys to success when it comes to getting people to actually take advantage of these things and as an organization being able to provide these things from a financial standpoint?
Yeah, so one, you have to start building the relationships early on with our fire department. We started having conversations early on, long before they built their facility or even thinking about building a facility. We were talking about, hey, how can we do things better? Because in talking with the fire chief, they're just as concerned about their firefighters, their paramedics, their command staff as I am, and keeping them healthy and getting them to that retirement. So we started talking about, hey, how can we work together? What are the things that we can do so that if we do have a resource, it's shared amongst the budget. It's not just my budget, but it's also some exposure on their budget. So we started building those relationships with the psychologists. When we started with that, it was, again, before we had a traumatic incident where we were going to need a psychologist to maybe come in and do a debrief or to help an officer that was in crisis. I wanted to make sure that we had that conversation with someone long before that we even needed it.
Mhm.
The chaplain program, same thing. I wanted to make sure that long before we would need it, that we started it and we started to build that program. Peer support, the peer support teams that people are familiar with. Again, have those conversations, have the contact information. What can we do so that you do have that resource available to you? If you haven't quite gotten there yet to where, you have something in place, but at least you know who to call first to get the ball rolling. And then as far as specifically on funding, grant funding is always, the first place that I recommend to anybody. We started the psychologist and our athletic trainer, our tactical athletic trainer. We were able to get a grant through the mental health grant for a year. We actually partnered with another agency, another small agency next to us, and which helped promote our chances at getting the grant money. So it wasn't just my staff. We actually doubled the amount of officers that the grant was going to impact. And then again, as I said before, we extended it to that in-home or your your support person, the primary support person. So what would have been originally for us just a grant that was going to affect 24 officers turned into, well, now it's 24 officers plus all of our support. So now we're up to, roughly 50. And then we did this, doubled that. So now we have a grant that's going to affect 100 first responders.
Mhm.
So the chances of us getting that grant are significantly improved. Because now we're not a small agency, we're a medium sized or a larger agency competing for those grant funds. And they're out there and grants. And if there's administrators that are listening or chiefs that are listening out there, grants can be very challenging, and
Mhm.
that's putting it very nicely. They are not easy to manage, but for something like this, 100% worth the time and effort and energy and resources you need to put in to secure these funds. Um, and then the buy-in from my city council and from the city manager were just basically from the results that we got, from the initial, from the grant money. I worked with our athletic trainer who took fantastic notes throughout in the treatment, and he's not reporting anything specific about medical information on a person, but he is saying, hey, I address, a dozen back issues over the year, or shoulder issues or knee issues. Had this person had to be treated for it, it would have cost this much money. If we did have something where somebody was out because of an injury and he worked with them, hey, I was able to get the normal recovery time was 6 weeks. We were able to get this person back in 4 weeks. So that 2 weeks, equates to a cost savings for us
Yeah.
when it comes to it for staffing, overtime, workers' comp. So in order to, once the grant funds run out, it was easy for me to go to our city manager and city council and say, hey, this is something that we need to now permanently fund. They bought in so much again, as I said before, that they actually, our athletic trainer is citywide now. It's available to every single employee of our city.
Yeah, well, so I'm going to recap a little bit and just make sure I have this down correctly. So
Absolutely.
you started with building partnerships and relationships to be able to get the buy-in, and you started off with those proactive conversations. And then grant funding is your friend when it comes to
Yeah.
at least the initial jump off process. And then once you find success in the program and the resources, then I'm going to put this in quotes, then the sell of it is so much easier because you already know that it's successful.
And then the buy-in from, our staff, I will say that it takes time. You have to be patient. Our athletic trainer, we're bringing in someone from outside, law enforcement, we're very, cagey when it comes to bringing somebody from the outside into our inner circle. So it took some time. And it was important for myself and some of the other command staff, my assistant chief, we got out there and, made sure that we were going and utilizing the skill. If I just says, hey, this is for you, but it's not for me, nobody's going to use it. The first person that signed up for when we did the mental health check, the checkup from the neck up, was myself and the assistant chief. We were the first two to sign up to make sure that, hey, this isn't, you do as I say. This is for all of us, including myself. So you have to be willing, as a leader, as a chief, to get out there, and utilize the resources and show everybody that, hey, it's okay that, this person, we vet them, they come in, they are here, they can provide something specific. And we chose providers that were all, specializing in first responders, whether it was law enforcement, military, firefighters. They specialize in first responders because it is different. It's the stress and the trauma that we see, the physical injuries that we see. They are different than other occupations.
Yeah, I think two parts. So, one, as a leader, you are the first line of breaking that stigma. So, by you leading by example and saying, hey, I'm going to do it, then it allows everyone else, to feel more safe and comfortable to take advantage of those things. And then to your point about having someone who's culturally competent, I think it's also about like the language, and can someone speak your language a little bit, and does someone understand the unique challenges and intricacies of your profession? And I do think that that buys a lot of respect and buy-in if someone walks in and is like, hey, I might be an outsider. I'm not one of you, but I can speak your language and I've worked with enough of you to understand what you go through and to be able to provide you with the specific resources that are going to help you in your career. So I do agree with you that that's important. I've had a lot of, I don't want to say horror stories because maybe that's a little bit dramatic, but I've had a lot of other agencies talk about bringing in providers from the outside that maybe don't have that experience. And I think it takes one time to completely turn everybody off from whatever it is that you're doing. And it's so hard to rebuild that trust and that buy-in once it's gone. I'll give you a really quick example. I heard that there was an agency that brought in, they wanted to start yoga. So they brought in a yoga teacher, and the yoga teacher came in and started chanting and like doing some like, yoga stuff that's like normal maybe in the yoga community, but started chanting and kind of doing some like yoga things. And they were like, what is this? Woo woo. Like we're over it. And so anytime they tried to bring up any sort of resource that was similar to yoga, the whole department was like, no, never again. And so it's so hard when you almost have that one chance to win everybody over when it comes to something. So you have to be selective.
Yes, so true, so true. For law enforcement, definitely, we're never going to forget. It's that
People
bad
don't
experience.
forget.
Yeah, they're never going to forget it.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I appreciate you sharing how you've been able to find success in your organization and all the proactive efforts that you're making to make sure that everyone is ready and successful in retirement. My last question for you, and I think when you and I talked offline, I explained to you that The reason why I started this podcast is because I was always having conversations with leadership and I was always hearing these I wish statements. I wish I would have known, or I wish I would have done this, and maybe things would have been better. And I wanted to have a platform where we could share your words of wisdom with the younger generation so that they could be better set up for success. So, if you could leave your words of wisdom for the younger generation, what would they be?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you set me up with this question before, I had a lot of time to think about it, and I had a lot of those I wish statements. But the one I think it comes down to for me is that using the mental and physical health resources that are available is not a sign of weakness. It proves that you are strong enough, you're strong enough of a person to not only take care of yourself, but that you take care of others. Because that's ultimately that's what we want to do, is we want to take care of others in this profession. We want to make our portion of the world just a little bit better. And if we're not healthy, we can't do that. So going back in my career, taking advantage or seeking out, they weren't available back then, but I could have obviously sought those out. But now we are making them available to our staff, our officers, our leaders, and making sure that they feel comfortable and taking advantage of that is really the advice that I would. It is not a sign of weakness. It was actually a sign of strength to ask for some help, guidance, and assistance.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time and hopping on here with us. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I really appreciate it too, and I had a great time.
Good. Thank you.